Good afternoon and welcome. We're glad you're joining us today. We're going to give it a second for everybody to jump in the room and then we'll get started. You're just joining us, welcome. We're going to give it a second for people to get in the room and then we will get going. Thank you for joining us. All right, we seem to have plateaued on the numbers, so we'll get started. My name is Jennifer Barber, and I am the Assistant Vice President of Alumni Relations in your Sacramento State Alumni Association. And I want to thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Meet the Dean with the College of Business and Dean Bill Cordero. Dean Cordero has been with Sacramento State since 2018. And I will let him fill you in on his background and his path and what brought him to Sacramento State, as well as where the college is going. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer those later in the program. All right, Dean Cordero, take it away.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everybody. Talking to a blank screen here, so I see there's 13 or so. Jennifer kind of prompted me. She gave me a little outline, and it says, you know, your outline, your background, your Sac State experience, and your pandemic experience. So I've made some notes, and as she said, just ask me questions at the end. So my background and how did I get into higher ed? I'm a Northern California guy, and my folks are from Portugal, but I was born and raised in Marin County, and I went all through Catholic schools. I went to grammar school and Marin Catholic High School, and then I went to University of San Francisco, which is Jesuit, and that's an important element which I'll touch on later. Then I went to USC and got my MBA, and I worked for Atlantic Richfield for about 14 years, kind of all over the country, Los Angeles, New York, Houston, Atlanta. Then I came back to from New York to LA in 72, and in that time we were building the Alaska pipeline. A terrific company, wonderful experience for me. And I got up to kind of a middle management or lower middle management, but I had always had this feeling of doing consulting, actually. And one of the things I thought I needed to be a consultant was a PhD. So my claim to fame academically is I studied in the mid-'80s with Peter Drucker, famous Peter Drucker at the Claremont Graduate School. And I did get my PhD in 1986. And I did go into consulting with a partner and had a consulting firm out of our house, by the way, which helps me now when I get to the pandemic story. And then just by total happenstance, I met a fellow, and he had also gone to Claremont. He had also studied with Drucker, and he was a chair at Cal State Los Angeles in their business college. And he said, do you ever think about higher education, about teaching? And my mom was a school teacher, by the way, and my son's a school teacher. He teaches 5th grade in Lodi. So I'd never done it. I said, okay. So I went over there and taught a course, and I loved it right away. That was 1988. So that's 32 years I've been in the CSU. I'm a very strong regard for the CSU. I think we're kind of underappreciated. My mother went to Berkeley and my son went to Davis, so I know the UC system. But the CSU, we really do transform lives. We're the largest education of its type in the U.S., 480,000 students. By the way, just appointed a new chancellor today. But when I went over to Cal State LA, I didn't know any of that. I didn't really know who the students were or anything like that. And I liked it right away and started my path there. And as it is in academia, started as assistant professor and ended up, I was there about 13 years, ended up a professor and enjoyed it very much. I was kind of living in the West LA area and just saw this ad for this new campus in Ventura. And of course, it's called Cal State Channel Islands. It's in Camarillo, California, site of the old mental hospital, which is kind of an interesting story for another time. Anyway, job of a lifetime. They took 13 of us, 6 from the system, 7 from outside the system, and we started a university from scratch. We had state backing. I can't talk enough about it, what the experience was. It was essentially, they said, okay, Bill, you do business, Jackie, you do English, Ivana, you do math, and we literally started it from scratch. There were no students for a year. Then we took in students, and we took in juniors the first year we were open, and then freshmen the next year. Come back to the Jesuits. The Jesuits stressed a liberal arts approach to education, general education, we often call it. And Drucker, Peter Drucker, often talked about the liberal arts nature. In fact, he called management a liberal art. When you're in business or when you're a manager, you're not just dealing with the technical sides, accounting, finance, things like that, but you're dealing with all the other aspects that a liberal arts education would give you: history, philosophy, geography, the hard sciences, etc. So I was able to apply that when I started we call it the Martin V. Smith School of Business and Economics at Channel Islands. We got a donor and named the school after him, which is typical. And I put these ideas together in what we call the 3 C's, which was critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. There was a study a few years ago by Northwestern. They surveyed, I think, 3,000 CEOs, what they were looking for in college graduates. And what they said was, we want people that can think and communicate. Because the technical skills that you would get at the bachelor's degree level, they're not going to be that intense for a company. They're going to teach you their technical skills. But can you work with others? Can you think on your own, etc.? So very proud of what we did at Channel Islands. I was there 17 years, hard to believe, and was dean about the last 10 or 12 years there. And then I saw an opportunity to come to Sac State. What attracted me to Sac State was it was in the CSU. I had heard good things about Robert Nelson, the president. I knew the provost, who was one of the original faculty with me down at Channel Islands. So I checked it out, and I was from Northern California. And it looked, my son teaches at Loda, as I mentioned, it just looked like a good opportunity to, frankly, take what I had done in industry and in starting Channel Islands and bring it onto a larger playing field, more impact, larger scope. So that's why I applied for Sac State. It gave me essentially a bigger platform to build off of. So I had the industry experience at ARCO, then my consulting experience, and then of course the startup experience. One of the big advantages of Channel Islands, and I might touch on this some more, was that I was able to hire everybody. So my most important lesson I learned both in industry and in starting Channel Islands, it's who you hire. I always say that if you give me the right people, we can do anything. And some of you know this, if you make a wrong hire, you're dealing with that a lot of times. So I came here July 18th of 2018. That day it was 106 degrees. The next day it cooled down to 105 degrees. But I was raised in Marin County. We never quite got that hot. But we just love it up here. My wife happens to be a nurse and started a nursing school down in Southern California. And now she got an excellent job with the nursing board up here in Sacramento. So all of those aspects worked out terrifically. And of course, I have friends and family up in this area besides my son. So since I got here in July of 18 at Sac State, a couple of things, significant things I think we've done. We set up departments within the College of Business. The college didn't have departments, and we were the only one of the 23 schools in the system, business schools, that didn't have departments. It's kind of a long history there. So we now have 6 departments. We took and reorganized the graduate programs. We have a master's in accounting, and then we have a master's MBA, Master's in Business Administration. And we took all of those and put them in one place. If you know the MBA, we have a IMBA, MBA with an international business focus. We have an EMBA, which is a master's with an executive emphasis. And then we have our regular MBA. So we put all those under one person, and we have a faculty director for each of those. I call them flavors. Couple of other things that we're doing. One we're doing right now. You notice I just referred to the College of Business. We're in a process of actually formally renaming the college. It started out as a division of business in 1947, and it's had various iterations of its name, and the official name right now is College of Business Administration. Within the CSU, there's only 2 or 3 now that keep the name administration. And, you know, one of our proudest things is we're accredited by the AACSB, the accrediting body, and only about, I think, 13% of those accredited schools use the word administration. It's become a little bit passé. So we're in the process, and of course we have to go through, we just had the faculty vote in the college, and then it'll have to go to the Senate and up through the president. Obviously, Dr. Nelson makes the final decision. We'll call it the College of Business. So instead of CBA, which confused me from the beginning, the collective bargaining agreement, will be COB, College of Business. And when I talk to a lot of people and I hear faculty talk, almost nobody says College of Business Administration. Everybody says, you know, College of Business, something like that. Another question that Jennifer had asked me is, what are the priorities for the college? Well, today, since March, the priority has been safety. We are doing everything we can to protect the safety of our employees, that's our faculty and our staff, and of course, everything we can do to protect the safety of our students. That means that we are in a virtual environment. We're in a virtual environment right now. That means we're using Zoom. That means that all of our courses in the business college are taught in a virtual environment, either asynchronous, meaning they can be recorded and a student can look at them at any time, or synchronous, meaning we're online together like you and I are now. Some of the other colleges, like my colleagues in performing arts and in laboratory-related courses, have some face-to-face classes on campus. Very strict guidelines for them, though. Very strict guidelines for staff and faculty to be on campus. Without exaggeration, you have to have President Nelson's permission to be on campus. There's a whole series of protocols and forms that eventually reach the president. So our priority right now is keeping everybody safe. The second thing, of course, is continuing our learning. You know, we talk about creating an effective learning environment for our students, and I'll talk some about the pandemic experience in a little while. But we've in just a matter of days, back in March, we switched all of our 900 sections of courses to a virtual environment. So the 2 priorities for us right now is to continue the learning environment as best we can, and I'll comment on that a little bit, and of course, keeping everybody safe. The system has announced that we will stay in a virtual environment through the spring. We started this in March, and then we went into the summer, and of course now we're into the fall. And all we know for sure, because it's been announced, is we'll stay in this environment through the spring. My own personal opinion is, unless something drastically changes, and that would have to be some kind of a widespread effective vaccine, I think we will continue in this environment for quite a while, which isn't ideal, but it's the safest way to deal with our environment. Other priorities for the college, once we get back to what I would call normal, is our priority is scholarships. You know, a lot of our students are needy. A lot of our students have housing issues. A lot of our students are food insecure. All 23 campuses have pantries for free, no questions asked. And our tuition at the university, the CSU system, is very reasonable. It's only $6,000 in tuition, but that's a lot of money. When I started in 1988, the tuition was $300. So our student, you know, our students, many of them have to work just to go to college. They have to work just to survive, to pay their rent, etc. So one of my goals, I know Dr. Nelson wants to increase scholarships. That's one of my goals here at the college, is to give as many scholarships as possible. When I'm done in a few minutes, I'm going to introduce Tim Richter, our advancement person, and he's going to talk about some of our progress. We've been making some pretty good progress on scholarship, but we have a long way to go. The other key priority for the college, in my view, once we're back to normal, is to continue to hire excellent faculty. I mentioned that earlier. To me, the key to any organization is who you hire. Management and support and all that's important, but you have to hire correctly. So that's another emphasis we have. I'm looking at Jennifer's questions here. What's your favorite memory of Sac State so far? Well, this is kind of a cliche answer that I give every place I work, and that's the people you work with. The people here at Sac State, when I talked to the people I knew up here before I took the job, they said that they were just terrific people working here, starting with the president. And that's true. I mean, the colleagues here are just hardworking, very dedicated to the students. And the community is very supportive. This environment I'm used to from Channel Islands. At Cal State LA, we're down in the middle of that megatropolis there. And frankly, Cal State LA is just another one of many big schools down there. UCLA, USC, Loyola, and then nearby our sister colleges, Fullerton and Pomona, things like that. At Camarillo, California, in Ventura, they had been trying to get a university for 30 years. So we were met with not only open arms, but every imaginable kind of welcome you can think of. We were just embraced by the community. They were just desperate for a university, and it was just a fantastic experience. So coming to Sac State, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but Sac State is such an important part of this community, of this area. Really the only competitor, and they're in kind of a different niche, is UC Davis. So I found the community extremely receptive. That Made in Sac State slogan, whenever I'm out all the time, Tim Richter and I, in the normal times, we're always going out for lunches and dinners, and we meet alumni like yourself all the time. Sac State is very important to the community, and you can just feel it. You can feel people's pride in the university, and that's very helpful to me, frankly, as dean. Not only helps us get support, guest speakers, financial support, things like that, but also it's just rewarding to see the impact that we have on the community. Jennifer asked me to respond to this. What advice would you give, or best advice I'd ever given? I'd say this. So I've been in management for quite a few years, decades now, and I've been in academia now for 3 decades. Start with keep your eye on the target. Particularly in higher education, in this political environment, CSU is a huge bureaucracy, 23 campuses, 20,000 employees, 480,000 students. It can be distracting. There's lots of, as you can imagine, forms and policies and procedures and executive orders, et cetera. And I think the thing you need to do is just keep focused on our job is to offer the students the best education environment we can give. And everything else is important, but it should be in support of that. The other thing I've noticed over the years, particularly in these roles of dean, is that the spotlight is really on the leader. With that thing in kindergarten, we all play follow the leader. So you have to be careful as a dean, what I write, what I say, what kind of signals I give, just like the president and the provost, my bosses, have to do the same. And then the last thing I kind of made in these notes here was, and this I learned from the president down at Channel Islands, if you don't concern yourself with who gets the credit, you can get an awful lot done. But if you're worried about getting credit for certain things, then it kind of distorts the experience. The last thing that Jennifer asked me to talk about was the pandemic experience. How's the virtual education impacted the college, the faculty, and the students? Well, I already told you that I'd had that experience of having a home business, consulting business. So I've been used to working this way. I've been in front of this camera since March. But let's talk about it in general. As you might imagine, there's positives and negatives. The positives are you can frankly get quite a bit of work done. It's easier to get guest speakers. It's easier to have meetings. You don't have to worry about getting there and driving and all that other things. It's easier to organize sometimes. And of course, it can be more efficient in terms of the workday and things like that. The negatives are, on just carrying on that theme, you can be distracted if you don't watch yourself. You can get kind of what we call Zoom fatigue. It's not the same, you know, it's a certain weird kind of tiredness. By the way, weird is the word I use for all of this. It's just a weird environment. It's not totally negative. It's not super positive. It's just very weird. In terms of the faculty, the same issues. They're being forced to work at home. They're being forced to teach in a way that they may not be comfortable with, particularly, frankly, our older, more experienced faculty. Many of our faculty just coming out of graduate school or just in the last few years, they're probably more adept, certainly at systems and things than I am. They're more comfortable with social media, but some are having some difficulty doing it. And then, of course, the students, the same thing. All the adjectives I just used for the college and the faculty can apply to the students. There's a particular kind of stress. We don't know the environment that the students are working in. Do they have a desk? Do they have a good computer? Do they have a good internet connection? Are there family, friends around? If they're not working, they've got those financial stresses. They and the faculty are trying to work through the course material simultaneously. So I would say the environment magnifies both the positives and the negatives. So lately I've been telling everybody whenever I have meetings, you know, it's okay to say you're not okay. One of the things that concerns us as deans, and I know starting with the president too, is the mental health of everybody. You know, these are stressful times, not only the pandemic, but the climate we're in, the social climate, and then here the fire climate, the literal climate. So we're trying to give as much emotional support as we can to everybody. How do you balance everything? I think everybody makes their own, you know, their own decisions on how to do things. There's nothing magic about being virtual, just like there's nothing magic about being on campus. I find people that are effective in one environment are often effective in another environment. And people that weren't very effective on campus aren't effective just because they're working out of their house, you know. Oh, here's a question. What are your favorite binge watching? Well, Marie and I, my wife, we just got finished with Intelligence, which is a Canadian 2-season thing. And then we watch Backbench, Broadchurch. And the last one is The Stranger. And I'm looking at my schedule here, and you know, Jennifer, you got to be proud of me. It says 5:55, and I got 5:54. So I'm going to introduce Tim Richter. He's called the Director of Development for the College of Business, and he and I work closely, and I'd like him to say a few words about his position and the status in the college. Tim?
Thank you, Bill. First off, I just want to thank everybody again for attending and joining us tonight. I've had the pleasure of working with Dean Cordero for about 2 years now. I can vouch for everything he's talked about and tell you guys that he's brought a lot of positive changes to the College of Business Administration. I want to talk about just a couple ways, what things we're doing with our alumni in the College of Business and ways to get involved moving forward. Obviously, joining the Alumni Association and specifically our Business Alumni Chapter is always a great start. So thanks again for participating tonight. As you can imagine, as a campus and as a College of Business, we have numerous campus events throughout the entire year. We're a little sad that our annual awards banquet was canceled this past spring, and a couple of other our events that we have planned throughout the year. But as a whole, the university and the College of Business, we're adapting to this virtual environment really well. And we're going to continue to put on virtual events, professional development, networking, and more throughout the year. So I would highly encourage you to keep your eye on the calendar to make sure that you can join us for some of those events. Other things we do and we'll continue to do this year is doing, having your organizations that you work with or you're part of, continuing to come to our career fairs, or we have an annual event in spring where we bring College of Business, 40 businesses to the College of Business to interact with our juniors and seniors. We're always, as a campus and at the College of Business, particularly looking for internship opportunities for our students so they can get that practical experience and knowledge in the real world. And as Bill kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, we're continuing to expand upon our guest speaking opportunities. We're always looking for experts and guest speakers to come teach in our different classrooms. As Bill mentioned, we have 6 new departments. So, and you can imagine many classes being taught every semester. So guest speaking, and right now in the virtual environment, it's a little bit easier to happen. But also we have over 10 student clubs in the College of Business. And I know when they meet on a monthly basis, they're always looking for industry experts to come in and speak to the students interested going into those respective fields. Lastly, too, obviously, Bill mentioned earlier, a priority of the college is scholarships and across all of campus. So the philanthropic support is very helpful. In the College of Business, scholarships is our top priority. Good news for us, I know sometimes there's not as much good news right now in 2020, but for us in the College of Business, we did have our top fundraising year in terms of scholarships for the amount of students who received scholarships and the amount of funds that we allocated. As Bill mentioned, though, with our college having over 3,000 students, we're always looking to do more scholarships because a lot of our students right now have unfortunately been affected by the pandemic with some of the student employment opportunities on campus and off campus. So those are some of the main ways I was just wanting to highlight, and having everyone be part of us in the College of Business. Obviously, when we get back to, I'd say as we get back to more normal times, but we're back in person. Obviously, there's a lot more events we'll be doing on campus. And right now, we're going to continue putting a calendar of events throughout the year virtually, trying to introduce you to new faculty some of our top students. So I highly encourage everybody to be part of that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to discuss ways to get you more involved. We love having our alumni engage with us. As Bill said, I feel like the point of pride in the community, being a Sac State alumnus, we have many, over 60% of our alumni at Sac State, right, live and work in the Sacramento region. So you can't go anywhere without running Sac State alumni, and everyone's very proud to be associated with the university. So at this point, I think I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer Barber, maybe for some Q&A.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Dean. We have not had any questions submitted live through the Q&A, but I have a couple that came in ahead of the event. One of them I think you've touched on, but I'll put it out there in case there's any more that you want to add. It was, how do you bring the business world to life in the classroom? And I know you've talked about having speakers, alumni speakers come in, but wanted to see if there was any more you would add to that.
Sure. Well, I was a professor for 15 years before I got administration. And so I can speak to that. When you have kind of 2 different groups of students, you have undergraduates, there's kind of a certain pedagogical approach. And then when you have graduates, they're a little different. But both, you kind of have the same themes. You have to, of course, know the material, but you have to know what in the material is going to pique the interest of the students. Even students who are taking a required class or don't want to take it at the undergraduate level, there are ways of engaging those students. And it's the typical, some of our faculty are really experts at this. With the modern student, your attention span isn't maybe what it was for us as students. So the use of social media, the use of video, the use of all kinds of different media, shorter lessons, frankly, and then bringing in real world examples. Those real world examples now with, of course, our technology, you can, not even in a pandemic environment, but you can bring in people from all around the world virtually into the classroom, either in real time or recorded time. So I think what you do is you just keep emphasizing, there's nothing magic to it. You have to keep doing your job. That's why teaching can be very difficult, because you have to do a lot of planning in order to deal with that 45 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes in the classroom. And it doesn't work unless you have an engaged community. And as I've mentioned, this community is very engaged. And so it makes it easier, put it that way.
Wonderful, thank you. Speaking of kind of an engaged community, one of the questions that came in advance was any advice you have for maybe our recent grads or graduates who are in transition within their career during this time of working remote, and how do they engage their network when everything is virtual?
Yeah. I don't have any particular answers. You know, it's, if the secret, in my view, is the success of an organization is who you hire, the success of a job seeker is who do you know? You just have to be a salesperson. It doesn't mean you have to be out there being a phony or anything else, but you have to just keep promoting yourself, exposing yourself and your resume through things like LinkedIn. It's a job to get a job. This environment is very tough. You know, one of the things that Peter Drucker used to talk about all the time was intellectual integrity. And it wasn't an ethic, even though he wrote on ethics. It was the ability to recognize your environment, what it is. You can be aspirational, but you have to know kind of what your situation is. And I think one of the first steps, and it helps your mental health, frankly, is to recognize this is a very tough time. This is a very difficult time. And so getting a job or a new job or a promotion, whatever, is going to be difficult. But the only way to do it is to stay at it. And there the mental health comes in, and having a network of friends and family and talking about things and all of that. So there's no secret except there's a million books on this. They all kind of say the same thing. You know, use your network, present yourself well, make sure your resume doesn't have typos, common sense, you know, if you're going to be on screen, dress appropriately. You know, there's lots of self-help books there. But my advice is don't get discouraged and just keep at it. Just keep at it, keep at it. And I use the example sometimes with how I got into academia. It was a total fluke. I mean, I was ready though. I had my PhD, did all of that work, but I was ready when this person said, "Are you interested in this?" And I said, "Okay, I'll give it a try." So.
Those are great words of advice, and hopefully folks will take those to heart. We have had a question submitted asking if someone is interested in guest lecturing or supporting the college in that way, who would they reach out to? How would they get involved?
They can reach out directly to Bonnie Beaver, Beavers, Beevers, or to Tim Richter. And we have as you might imagine, we have a system for it. What happens is Bonnie is head of our director of our Office of Student Engagement. She doesn't do the clearing, if you will, or the vetting of the person, but she passes it along to the professor. You know, professors, of course, are in charge of their classroom. So they're in charge of the curriculum and the speaking and all of that. But we have a database. And so like today, if somebody said, I'm interested in lecturing on something, they get to Bonnie, and then Bonnie would put a notice out to the entire faculty. We have this, you know, woman who's a CPA who's interested, here's her specialty, and she's interested in talking. And then, of course, it's up to the professors.
I would add one thing to that too. Bonnie, as Bill was just mentioning, and I wanted to make this a little more formal. So in the end of, or I guess early summer, we just now got a new link on a new form on our website posted. So I'm going to put the link in the chat so everybody can click on that to go check it out.
Good, thank you.
Fantastic, thank you, Tim. And then another question that came in is, what is your vision for the college over the next 5 years?
Well, that's pretty easy, I would say. It's going to take us a year or two to get out of this mess. We want to come out of this with some stability. You know, our budget has been devastated by the state. So we need to get back to normal, okay? But then I want to do two things. One, at the undergraduate level, we are what we call impacted. Unfortunately, we cannot take all the students that qualify under the CSU guidelines to be to major in business administration with us, and we have to restrict some. We're probably underserving about 1,000 students who would qualify. Of course, to do that, we need more faculty and we need more advising. So that's at the undergraduate. At the graduate level, we're doing several kind of fun things that are, it's always good to look forward. We're starting a master's in finance through our FIRE, we call it FIRE, which is finance, insurance, and real estate. Master's in that department. We're starting a master's in that. We're also starting a master's in business analytics. And then I skipped over it, go back to the undergraduate level. We know that there's a lot of big population in the state, and certainly around here, and we did the same thing down at Channel Islands, who have been to college but haven't finished college. So we're going to implement a degree completion program in business. Again, I did this down at Channel Islands, and there's just a pent-up demand. We weren't sure what it was going to be when we started, and it just kind of exploded. It's one of their bigger programs. And we would probably do that with the experience we have now. We would probably do that degree completion totally online. So someone, there's a lot of people around who have been to community college, maybe have 3 years of college, or maybe are only 7 or 8 courses short, never got their degree. We feel this will be a benefit to them. So those are the big forward things in the next few years. But boy, we have to get out of this mess first. We're just hanging on, surviving, trying to do the best we can right now.
Well, thank you for that perspective. Another question, how is the curriculum for business risk management changing with all of the digital transformation, security risks, and ethics issues? For example, artificial intelligence ethics that are being faced on the innovation front.
It's a good question. So at my level, I have to be a little vague because I'm not an expert. We have a Department of Information Systems and Business Analytics. And Joseph Taylor, by the way, an experienced guy, before he got his PhD, he was many years at Walmart. I know that faculty, he and his faculty, are updating their curriculum to deal with these very issues. I don't know enough to speak to it coherently, but if somebody were interested in the detail, we could certainly put them together with the faculty. The saying in academia is the curriculum rests with the faculty, and that's the way you want it because they're the experts. The dean and other managers, academic managers, are a step away from the curriculum. So, but I've heard them talking about it. I know it's in their courses, and of course, professors. I would say generally, and even going back to when I was teaching, if the topics come up out in the general public, you know how to weave them into your course at that particular time. Disaster preparedness is being covered now. The economic effect of the pandemic is being covered, unemployment, things like that.
I can only imagine those have got to be hot topics within your college right now.
Right. And an interesting thing though, you've got to be careful, and this is where I do get involved kind of as an overview. You can't make the entire curriculum about those topics. There are certain basic things, particularly at the undergraduate level, that students need to know. They need to know the principles of accounting and management and marketing and finance and all that. You can't spend the entire class talking about the pandemic or how businesses should react to that. It's important, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah, I can see they would need the foundational pieces in addition to that.
Right.
One last question as we wrap it up. I know there are a few really kind of community-focused opportunities through the college, the Center for Small Business, your Organizational Wisdom Studio. Can you share a little bit about those and how the community can take advantage of the
Sure. And the third one I'd put in would be our partnership with the Carlson Center. The Center for Small Business was just celebrating. We were going to have a big to-do and we can't do it. It's its 50th anniversary. And we've had this on other campuses. We actually had it down at Channel Islands. It's one of those things that just makes so much sense. And it's pretty easy to describe. The center goes and solicits problems from the community and then puts teams of students working with the professor to work on those problems. So it's that cliche win-win, that the business gets the wisdom of the professor and the students and the legwork. And then of course the students get that real world experience. And so that process has worked well on many campuses, and we have a thriving center here. We have the Wisdom Studio. That's one of our professors in management and organization. Started out as an adjunct of an interesting, at a film festival where he would have students make student films. This is in the College of Business we're talking about, not arts. And they would bring out certain concepts in that they were dealing with stress or loneliness or things like that. And that's evolved into this Wisdom Studio where they take certain topics and deal with those. And then the Carlson Center, of course, is outside of the college, but it's a natural link to our college. Cameron Law, the director, we work closely on a lot of different projects, pulling their people into us, and then our faculty are over there working with them. So all of those things are, I would call it outward facing. You know, we've been talking most of the time about the curriculum and the students and all that, but these things are outward facing. Again, to my point, the community is very receptive, and so it makes it easier to do.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time tonight, Bill. It's been wonderful to
My
hear
pleasure.
about the college, learn more about you. We did record this, so we will.
Oh, I'm in trouble. Okay. I did see that it was being recorded. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
share it with the attendees as well as others who may not have been able to make it
Okay.
tonight.
Okay. Well, thanks for setting this up. I always enjoy talking to people, even though I can't see them.
That is a unique situation with our
Yeah,
virtual
yeah,
environment.
yeah. Okay. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And thank
Bye.
you everyone for joining us. As Tim mentioned, I encourage you to join the Alumni Association. It is now free of charge. So please visit sacsstatealumni.com and sign up today, and be sure to select the Business Alumni chapter.
Honey,
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Stingers up.
why is Tim on here twice?